Hello again, I'm Pastor Murphy, and welcome back to Help Along the Way as we discuss the church and its teaching. Over the last two sessions, we have explored the Day of the Lord, a weekly celebration born from the resurrection of Christ and lived out in the gathering of the church weekly. Today, we step into another sacred practice that shaped the earliest believers and continues to shape us today. That is the Lord's Supper. If the Lord's Day reminds us that Jesus is alive, the Lord's Supper reminds us how deeply He loves us. It's more than a ritual, more than a moment in service. It's a table where memory, mercy, and community meet. So again, let's slow down together and walk into the upper room, to the table where it all began. A quiet room, flickering lamplight, the scent of bread and wine. Jesus sits with his disciples on the night before the cross. They don't yet understand what is coming, but he does. In Luke 22:19-20, Jesus takes bread, gives thanks, breaks it, and says, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." He lifts up the cup, says, "This cup is the New Testament or New Covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you." Notice the tenderness of that moment. He doesn't hand them a theological lecture. What he does is give them a meal, something tangible, something sacred. Because sometimes truth is better remembered when it is tasted, when it is held, when it is experienced together. And with those simple elements, bread and wine, Jesus gave his followers a way to remember him long after that night ended. But here's something important when Jesus said, "Remember." He wasn't asking for a quick mental flashback. The biblical idea of remembrance is deeper. It's a remembering that draws the heart back into the reality of what God has done. Think about a photograph of someone that you love. You don't just see an image, you feel a story. You remember conversations, laughter, and the shared moment. In the same way, the Lord's Supper is not a cold memorial. It is truly a living proclamation. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 11:26, "For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you do proclaim or show the Lord's death until he comes." Each time believers gather at the table, they declare something powerful. Christ gave himself for us. Grace is greater than our sin. Hope is stronger than death. The table becomes a sermon spoken without a microphone. Now let's step into the church at Corinth. Paul writes to them because their gatherings have become divided. Believers arrived early and ate without waiting for others. The wealthy were full, and the poor were left hungry. Instead of unity, the table had become a place of separation. And Paul says, this is not the Lord's Supper. Why? Because the table of Christ was never meant to highlight status or privilege. It was to remind everyone that we stand on equal footing at the cross of Jesus Christ. When believers share the bread and the wine, or the fruit of the vine, they are saying, We are one body. We share one Savior. We live by one grace. The Lord's Supper shapes the church into a family, not by ignoring differences, but by centering everyone on Christ. Let's picture a long table stretching across generations and cultures, young and old, rich and poor, strong and struggling, all receive the same grace from the same Lord. That's the beauty of the supper. So let's just pause for a moment and think about the last time we received communion. Did you feel rushed or did you feel invited? Did you remember only the ritual or the sacrifice behind it? The table is not meant to be a ritual or a routine checkpoint. It's an open invitation to remember how deeply we are loved and how closely we belong to the family of God. To take a breath of gratitude, just think. Today, we have seen the Lord's Supper begins with Jesus himself, a meal given in love, a remembrance that proclaims the cross, and a practice that shapes the church into one body. Next time, in session 4, we'll talk about something equally important, of how we approach the table, with reverence, with unity, with self-examination, not with fear, but with grace. Until then, remember the sacrifice, cherish the community, and walk in the mercy that Christ has given us freely. This is Help Along the Way. I'm Pastor Murphy. Thanks for viewing today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.